Today on Never Forget, Vivian Spitz, a court reporter from the Nuremberg Trials, author of the book Doctors from Hell, shares her experiences on the war crimes trials of Nazi doctors accused of crimes against humanity. Behind her are various pictures taken by the U.S. Army and other military photographers denoting the incomprehensible horrors that Nazi doctors perpetrated against the Jews during the Second World War. Vivian's hope is that mankind will always remember a time when humanity turned their heads from the Holocaust atrocities. And the main theme in her speeches is the famous quote from George Santayana, stating, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." The Nuremberg war crimes trials lasted from November 1945 to April 49 and were the first international trials of their kind. German doctors, officers, and soldiers would be held accountable for crimes against humanity and genocide perpetrated between the years 1933 and 45, when Hitler was in power. Vivian's message further addresses the role of bystanders and their part in allowing the Holocaust to occur. When a crime is committed, there is always a perpetrator and a victim. Not getting involved, looking the other way, or being indifferent always helps the perpetrator and never the victim, as Vivian states in her speeches.
I always thought that these concentration camps were just for the Jewish people. I never knew also that the priests, clergy, and all other forms of people were involved in these camps. And Dachau was a very brutal camp. And I am Catholic, and I feel that if I can help just get somebody, one person, no matter what religion, what race, what nationality, to understand what hate can really do to a world that's gone mad, and that we can turn it around by love.
Vivian describes what many Allied officers witnessed upon their arrival at concentration camps all over Europe, and how liberation didn't always mean survival for many of the Jews and dissidents interned at the camps. This man died a short time after this picture was taken, upon his being liberated. Judgment in the last of all 13 cases was rendered in April 1949. The trial case consumed 1,200 court days. There were 184 defendants, 118 of whom received prison sentences. 24 were sentenced to death and only 12 were executed. Who were these Nazi doctors from hell? Many of them were distinguished German scientists, chief surgeons and physicians from medical clinics, institutes, hospitals, and universities throughout Germany. They were the doctors at the concentration camps who performed the grisly medical experiments. They were charged with the outright murder of political prisoners, civilians, intellectual dissidents, non-German nationals, Jews, Catholics, and prisoners of war. Those who did not die suffered torture, became maimed, had cruel disfigurement and/or disability. Many of these individuals are still nameless victims of the crimes perpetrated by the Nazi doctors from hell.
That was today's edition of Never Forget.
Welcome back to the crossover. We're in our last segment here. We have Dr. Robert Fish. And Dr. Fish, just tell us again, one of the humane sides of your story was the peasant woman.
Well, I think that was, we were walking through the Alps. Took us almost some months to walk through, and we get sometimes for days neither food nor even water.
Just walking aimlessly?
Just walking, no. We have walked from the early morning until the sun went down.
Do you have any idea where you were even going?
No, we didn't know that. The reason for all this is called the Dead March. The reason for this was because they did not want us to be liberated. So we had to walk, because the Russians now already at the Hungarian-Austrian border or German border. The Americans already in Germany, so they wanted to squeeze the people from the camp. Even from Auschwitz, people had to go. And so we didn't get for days sometimes food or water, and we threw away the blanket in the morning, and we pick up from the dead people in the afternoon, because anyone who could not walk any further, they just sit down and they trod them on the head. So in one day before we started to go to the walk, an Austrian woman threw apple to us, and you can imagine the people started to scream and running to try to get the apple. And she was shot and killed in front of us. So this is just again an example that people, for absolutely strangers, try to be helpful. Even so it was dangerous or deadly.
Deadly.
And so this is what I think we should emphasize.
And remember.
In other words, you know, what my purpose of my talks is usually that in order to be respected, you have to respect other people. And then what I try to explain to the young people, that we are born as biological animals. And even if your mother is a good person, you didn't inherit that. You have to learn from it. So it's like the tadpole became a frog. In order to be a human being, you have to learn that. And if you are so smart in the school, why don't you just go home and watch television? Because the brain is not enough, you have to put something in it.
Right. You have to learn to be good or bad.
The other thing is, which is we always talking about, we're going to have another president or the North Koreans or whatever. The only change in this world can be done by you. You are the only one who can change, and you can change a few other people. Don't start to me the big changes we want to do in the world. I'm a citizen of the world. Well, the world does not accept you as a citizen.
Start with the one person that you're
person of the time.
Great advice, and coming from a person that has had such experiences. Obviously, you have thought deeply on all that you've been through to be able to pass on to us your knowledge.
Yeah, you know, this was never to me a major subject until accidentally I get in a situation that I had an impact on young people, and this is to me more important than medicine.
You just started sharing this recently?
Yeah, well, it's not recently. It's actually going on almost more than 10, 12 years, and I go a lot of lectures and exhibits, and which I have now in Houston, and talking to young people, and this is to me the most important thing I ever did.
Dr. Fish, you said a lot of the quotes from your book are from the gravestones in the concentration camps?
No, the quotes is actually from the Bible. The older quotes are from the Bible, but this is it's a memorial for the people who were killed in Hungary, and that quotations are there on the different places, on the different concentration camp, and with few names, because it's only a very few names are there. About 700,000 Hungarian Jews were killed, and it's only not even 1,000 names on it, because it's only, in order to be under that specific wall, I have to say, I saw your father to be killed, and I was the witness, I told you. Okay. You went there and you put your father's name on it. But most people in Hungary, I don't have anyone who knows what happened. Or
no record.
No record.
There was one quote that you have in there, even death couldn't come between us.
Well, my father was killed also, and he was a very good person, and he was so respected they didn't put him in a common grave. And so when we were lucky enough to find him by a very peculiar circumstances, by an eyewitness who was there, and we took him back, and he was the first who was buried in Budapest.
Were you able to see your father before he was killed?
No, I went with my father before I was taken away. I didn't see him at all during this period of time.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 19 years old. Yeah. And so in that cemetery they have quotations, and these quotations all from the Bible, which is very potent quotation. Let's say, I cried against brutality, no one heard me, or even that could not between us, because my father is to me just as loved today than it was when he was in life.
You raised the question in your book, are we the chosen people?
Well,
what would you say to that? What does that mean?
I think first of all, we're talking about so much about Mohammedan these days. I think it's no bad religion. It's just bad people.
Dr. Fish, I guess I'm going to make a statement here, quoting you, and it's not a question, but if you'll comment, to remain human, even in inhuman circumstances.
Well, I think this is, to me, one of the major things which is for message for the young people. I think that, first of all, when we finish our days, and I mean our lives even, or days, we have to say, I did the right thing for myself and for others. And my time was well spent. And I think that just because I was again a victim, I cannot be a judge. So I think we have to be sure that our life was worth and we're doing the right thing, not just for myself. And then what I really try to emphasize, you cannot be again neutral. You have to make a commitment. You're either for it or you're against it. You're either suppressing or you become a victim. You cannot say, I don't care, it's not my business. Because if you're not caring, you became a part of it. That's exactly what happened with the German people.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't say, you know, it's a very famous story about if I came for the communists, I didn't stand up, I wasn't communist and so forth. When they came for me finally, nobody was there to stand up. That's exactly the point.
Yes. Well, I think you've got high hopes for mankind, but
well,
at least...
I'm not so sure I have high hopes, but I think we have to understand that we are, as a species, very short-lived. We are just the beginning, so we're still an animalistic behavior, as we can see day by day.
Well, if you can set the standard coming out of what you came through, that's something that you think we could rise up to.
I hope we can, you know, we can be a little bit different from the tigers or the lions.
You bet.
Although they are very nice animals.
Dr. Fish, we appreciate you spending some time with us.
And
best to you too.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us on the crossover, and stay tuned. We've got something special for you.
And now, today's edition of The Promised Land.